And welcome, everybody.
Good morning, people, and welcome to another edition of the Early Watch, hosted by myself and G Webs from the Daily Gun Show, whom we really appreciate helping us out here.
I know it's kind of awkward beginning there. I left you hanging. I didn't know if we should coordinate that a little better. But yeah, no problem at all. Happy to help out while there's a transition going on, getting your guys' schedules figured out.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I got to try to get with Jimmy this weekend and see what's happening. If I remember it, that's my problem is I get busy and just don't even think about trying to get a hold of Jimmy, which is why most of the time I communicate with him, it's email because I can do that while I'm doing other stuff.
And I'm guessing he's been pretty crazy busy lately, so I'm guessing he hasn't been reaching out either.
Right, and I don't want to bother him weekdays if he's working a lot, so I generally let it go for weekends. I don't know whether he's working weekends. He may be. I don't know what the hell we're going to talk about today, but I thought at some point I want to kind of roll through a bit of a history on rifle accuracy since how you posted that sighting in your AR thing on the main page.
Oh, the Zero? Yeah, I watched a video one time. It was the Magpul, I think. No, it wasn't. It might have been a Magpul long range. And it was somebody's long range video, and they just went right into zeros. And I'm sitting here watching it thinking, who's going to know this? Like, I mean, I guess it wasn't necessarily an intro to shooting video or anything, but it, there was some conceptual loss there. And I knew from the other people that were sitting there watching the DVD with me that they were not getting it. So I figured that was a way to play around with some simple illustration to get the point across with some of those graphs that they use a lot.
Uh, yeah, that was a nice little idea. And like I said, I just think I'm going to go through a bit of the things I know of from history that they did to try to get accuracy. It is definitely not really AR specific, it's more bolt action rifle type stuff, which is where I come at it from anyway.
Theory's the same. You got a gun that's looking, you look straight, but the bullet is being shot up in the air because it has to come back down.
Right, and there's a whole
Where it comes to ARs, usually is people want to zero it at some distance where it's usable, reaching out, but they don't have ranges that are 300 yards long. So if you want a 300 yard zero, you're going to do that zero on the inside side where the trajectory of the bullet is going up past your line of sight, going up, because as long as you know the math, you know where that's coming back down. And if you do it so that it's 33 and third feet or whatever for the Marine Zero, at 33 feet it'll come back down at 300, so you know it's basically the same spot on the target at 33 and 300. And that would be the same on any, I guess it would differ from bullet to bullet, like caliber to caliber, um, at what angle or whatever, but for the most part you're shooting up and then it's coming back down, and it's just about where you want that coming back down part to hit. And then sometimes you can kind of cheat by getting the zero at that front part and not have to use a really long range or spend all day doing it.
actually when I sight in my hunting rifles, uh, the maximum distance I go to is 100 yards. But like on my 22s, I sight them in at 25 because that gives me reasonable accuracy at any distance I'm going to try to shoot squirrel at. It's not that far off from 25 to 50. And shit, you ain't gonna see a squirrel at more than 50, 60 yards away. And in the timber, you're not gonna have a clear shot at that kind of range anyway. Initially sighted the thing in at 100, and it worked all right. But I'm going to change it. I got to re-sight it in this year because I was trying to get perfect for the distance, and then there's no perfect distance because every one of them's different. So I sighted it in last time at 25, and I need to go back and recheck it this year before hunting season. Plus, that's something I do inside. I have an indoor range of 25 yards, so it can be air conditioned when it's really fucking hot. But the accuracy part of it I'm going to talk about is what people have done or tried to do in the past to make rifles more accurate. Back in, and I admit I'm no expert on this. I'm only relating what I have tried or seen people try or read about. I suppose throughout history, they have tried to make the fit of the barrel in action as well mated to the stock as possible. But starting in probably the early to mid 50s, maybe even earlier than that, there became a thing of glass bedding or bedding the rifle, which is putting some hardening substance in the stock and then installing the action and barrel assembly to make it perfectly fit. And what they found out was that the stock would cause effect on the barrel with this. So, the stock would change its positioning a little bit with humidity or temperature, and you couldn't get a zero to be true from day to day. Then after that part, they tried just pillar bedding, which initially was putting a block out at the end of the stock to put pressure on the barrel to hold it up. And then there's always pressure up against it. That's another one that it didn't work because it had the same problem. If the stock flexed due to humidity or temperature, then it would change the zero of the rifle. Somewhere in here, somebody got the idea of free floating the barrel so it didn't touch at all. And initially, this didn't work out very well because the action didn't fit in the stock well enough to hold it true. So you get bedding the action, which they free float the barrel, but they glass bed the action to make it a perfect fit there. And this is where you start getting real rifle accuracy. And I think today with synthetic stocks, it's becoming more common for them to embed a pillar in the stock. Like aluminum or something like that, so that the rifle has got a hardened mount where the screws go in so it can't flex there. But there are certain things I hear people talking about free floated barrels and ARs, and I'm like, what the fuck is the point? The fact that it's got a gas port and a gas tube, that kind of takes away your free floating. But what I know about ARs is near nothing, so I could be completely off base on that idea. I don't quite understand trying to get that kind of accuracy out of something that wasn't really intended to be that way.
Well, I think it's just because they got such a small barrel. thin barrel, and it's only attached with that threading, where the upper receiver hits the barrel, it's threaded on there, it's screwed in literally. So if you do go with the standard handguards, which were made for that kind of heavy 20-inch barrel, and then you take it down to 16 and you put that handguard on there, you're just putting super torque on that barrel, and it's, I guess, thin enough that it makes that big a difference. I mean, people, I've never done testing, but I'm assuming people have done testing enough to, that's definitely the preferred way, is to just have your handguard attached to your upper so that your barrel is never touched by the human interface.
And there may be validity to that. I don't know. I have not had anything to do with it. But it seemed to me that smaller, thinner barrel would benefit by being clamped in the stock, or the
Give it more rigidity or whatever.
Yeah, because the materials that they're making that out of are not going to be prone to temperature changes like the old stock rifles are.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, like you said, there must be something to it because people definitely do it. But it could just be as simple as it's less stuff. You attach the handguard to the upper, and if you're not too worried about strength or any of the other things, it's just less parts really. Your handguard just extends off from the upper and holds your sight, and that's about it. Maybe a light, and mission accomplished. And you didn't need those front parts. And if it's an extra bonus that they don't touch the barrel, then that's an extra bonus. It might have come from long range competitive shooting or something, and then just been a preferred method of doing it. Not so much because of its accuracy, but just because it's, like I say, a simpler design.
And that may entirely be possible. I have no idea. I have did considerably more research on doing it to bolt action rifles because that's what I mess with. And I honestly, for 30 years, I haven't tried to bed one. I do check for free float, and I will free float barrels, but other than that, I don't do much. I'm not trying to get 1,000-yard accuracies out of things. And hell, my center fire long range rifle now is semi-automatic, and it's not known for accuracy. The two I have, well, the one I have that I've shot is pretty damn good. I was able to get 2-inch groups at 100 yards shooting a freehand standing with open sights. So, maybe a lot of luck there. I don't know, but it shoots well. So I free floated that Savage that I had, but I couldn't keep that gun because it kicked too damn hard. But it's just that zero on the AR video you posted was just kind of inspired me to think about some of the accuracy techniques that how that's evolved. They say that lever actions are not as accurate because the locking lugs are to the rear of the bull. Have I found that to be true? Not particularly. Back when I was fucking around with highly accurate thinking, trying to make my guns as accurate as possible with reloading, I made up rounds for a 30-30 Winchester with 110 and 125 grain spritzer bullets. And you could load one in the gun and one in the magazine because they could chain fire because they're pointy. And that 30-30 did as good as 30-60 do at 100 yards. So I don't know how much credence I put into that, but uh, it's probably true. Back in the day when I could see, I was pretty good with rifle. I'm not so good now. Because I'm about fucking blind. I watch all these rifle reviews that I see on in the American Hunter or the American Rifleman from the NRA, the publications from them, and they're touting how good Rifle X is. It shoots a sub MOA or a 1 1/4 MOA. Like uh, that really ain't all that damn good. Think about it. I mean, if you're talking precision rifle, that thing should shoot sub half MOAs all damn day long. But they're using factory ammo. They don't make uploads for them. But I was just inspired to talk about that for a bit. So there you go.
I don't know. I guess there must be some evaluation to determine if a gun can be accurate, or maybe just by the results of people shooting it, I guess. But yeah, I think it'd be a tough sell to tell me that a lever action ain't accurate.
Well, they're not saying they're not accurate. They're just saying they cannot be as accurate because they have the locking lugs in the back of the bolt.
That's, I guess, what I'm saying. That sounds like one of those theoretical things. That, I mean, I guess it's technically provable, I imagine, but I'm thinking there's just such a the difference between good and bad at that point would be not apparent, not obvious. You know what I mean?
Right, because your lever action in like a deer hunting scenario, you're not shooting that thing 300 yards. You're shooting that thing maybe 100. And it's perfectly acceptable minute of deer at 100 yards.
Well, that's, I guess, what I'm saying. Yeah, 300 yards, you reach a lever action out there, it'll get out there, and you might be as big as a hand or a fist, but instead of a dime. But who cares? At that distance, you only need to be a fist still.
Dude, what I figured out was, or what I figure is, I should say, that more of the inherent quote unquote inaccuracy in the lever action is due to bullet, and that the fact that they have rounded or flat nosed bullets as opposed to spritzers.
Exactly. And they're not usually little 22s or something. They're 30 cals. They're bigger. Wind hits them.
I specifically loaded up for a Winchester 94 with spritzers in it, and it did as well as anything else. Al says the one and only deer he took was at 150 yards with lever action 30-30. I don't doubt that a bit. I would say that the 30-30 is probably fine up to about a couple hundred yards. I think it's probably dropping its terminal ballistics at 200 yards to where it's not.
So they usually say 30-30 is about the same ballistically as 7.62 by 39. So you know what that means.
Well, except for the 39 has a spritzer in it, and the 30-30 has this fucking round nose.
Yeah, I guess. But the power and coefficients or whatever the things are, they usually compare them. I figure that just means the communists could never take over, even back in the olden days, because cowboys could still these things, still matched them.
Well, the 30-30 wasn't really a cowboy round. I mean, the cowboy era was pretty much over when it showed up. But they did have 45-70s, which I got no doubt would kill at 300 yards easy enough. You may have to point it up in the air a little bit, but I don't know. I think the 30-30 has been underrated an awful lot. And, here, I can't use some for deer hunting anyway, so there ain't a hell of a lot of point. I can coyote hunt with it, but there's lots better cartridges for that. That's why I went to 30-06. But I may buy a 30-30 someday. I had a 32 special, which I liked even better. But I don't really have a need for one right now. Can't use, as far as I know, I can't use it in cowboy action shooting because it was too
30-30.
Yeah.
Oh, they want the calibers to be correct? Periods correct?
With the exception of the 44 stuff, they let you use 44 Special and Magnum and 38 and 357. But you can also use 45 and 4440. I think a lot of that was because people had those guns already. There's a lot.
That's what I was going to say. Some of it is, you're using a single action, but go ahead and use a modern caliber so that you don't have to kill yourself trying to find ammo or reloading.
Right. Ruger had started building that Black Hawk long before cowboy action started.
So speaking of calibers, you didn't happen to listen to Dead Horse's show yesterday?
No, I didn't. I don't listen to anything because of the bandwidth issue.
Oh, okay. Well, then this might be frustrating for you, I guess. Dead Horse, right? Did a show last night and went live with David out of Florida, and they started talking about the 5.56, the caliber, and I guess along with it the M16, of course, but the history of the caliber starting back in the 40s or something with the Wildcat rounds that what came before it, and then all through the military trials and how it competed with some kind of crazy flechette concept. And I think they went for 3 or 4 hours, and then they only got to 1968. So super interesting. They kind of read, and then they'd BS about it a little bit. They'd read some more out of a couple of 3 books, and then talk about something, read another paragraph from here, talk about it. So really, really cool concept for a show. And I was listening to it. I was getting some work done here, and very cool. I'm not sure if you're that interested in 223 or 5.56, I guess, but just the concept of it, and because it's a gun topic, just super interesting to hear some of the circumstances of history, or if this would have happened, then that couldn't have happened, but because of this, now we have this kind of stuff. Really neat.
Yeah, I enjoy that sort of stuff. 30-06 was kind of interesting in how it started. Is 30-03 with the freaking brown nose bullet. It wasn't really that good. Too much damn recoil, and because of the poor coefficient, it didn't do what they wanted. And the 30-06 became because of that particular reason. And probably one of the most popular rifle cartridges ever, if not the.
You saying odd 6 is the most popular?
Yes.
I mean, I'll agree it's popular, but it can't be the most popular. I'm wondering, as they were talking about that yesterday, and as you're saying that now, I mean, there was definitely more people into shooting back in the day. But I think even with more people into shooting, like a bigger percentage of the population, it was probably the same number of people or less. So I guess that doesn't matter. It's a matter of how big a percentage it is and how active those people are also. But anyway, these calibers, they would have been invented by some guy in a room, and then he would have made a number of them and brought them out to some range and then handed some out, I guess, or whatever. But, really, if we're talking Wildcat, unless there's a barrel or a chamber somewhere that can fit it, you can have all the Wildcats you want. I guess the Sabo rounds, there's some potential that those could be used in, more variety of rifles or something. But I was wondering, it seems like a doomed scenario. Like, hey, I'm going to put you back in the 19, pick a decade before the internet, because it doesn't matter. I'm going to put you back in the 19 somethings. I'm going to give you a different bullet that you came up with or somebody came up with, but you're championing it. Your job is to get it out there, and it won't fit in most rifles. So you got to carry the rifle around with you and a handful of these bullets, and then somehow prove to people, what, each range every weekend kind of thing. Or, I guess if a thing was published in a magazine and they said, take the projectile from this and put it in the case from that and use this, something to make it happen, and then you can shoot it out of this gun. I guess some of those things came that way, and 16 different people tried it that weekend. But can you imagine how these things actually took hold and then became popular, and then got to the point where a manufacturer was like, yeah, let's make guns for this, and then somebody else was like, yeah, let's make bullets for this, and then somebody else started making bullets for it. It just seems like such a doomed task, I guess, when we look at it from this perspective, having like emails and texting. How did they do all that stuff back in the day, or how long did it even take? It must have taken forever compared to now to develop a new caliber, huh?
Well, you think about the 454 Casull. Dick did that one in the late 50s, and it did not get legitimacy until like 83.
Yeah, in other words, created it, got credit, and it just sat there because what is he going to do?
Nobody's making a gun for it. The 44 Magnum is a probably 20-year thing to go from 44 Special to Magnum, and that was really a lot of that was people questioning the need for a handgun that had that much balls, but the jump from 38 to 357 was probably fairly short, because the 38 was barely able to do what they wanted it to do. I mean, but there's a shitload of calibers that are commonplace today that started their life as Wildcat. I mean, shit about.
Well, you technically have to take like the 22, because that was the first cartridge ever, and then you get your 44 and your 45, 32, 38, whatever those first maybe 10 or whatever you consider the first wave of them to be, like that first set of maybe the first rim fires, because that would have been the first generation of cartridges. But if you took those as the calibers, then everything's a Wildcat after that, really. I mean, there could only be so many original calibers, and then everything is a derivation, what the fuck word is, some alteration of those original ones.
Well, I think one more you have to add in there is the 8mm Mauser.
From in the olden days?
Yep, because it was the precursor to most of these modern rifle cartridges. I mean, it was the rimless bottleneck. And granted, the 4440 was a bottleneck of sorts, but
1903.
The 8mm Mauser was and it may be 7mm may have been the first one. I can't keep that straight. But the Mauser round was the first one like that, and it's where they got the idea for the 30-06, because I think they're the same damn size case. I mean, the diameter. And then most of our common rifle cartridges out there today, 22, 250, 308, uh, 25-06, 7mm 08 are all derivatives that come down from 30-06. Granted, the 22-250 is actually drawn down from the 308 case, but the 308 case was 30-06 and smaller.
There's a lot of people online. I don't know what I rubbed into my eye, but it feels like I rubbed turpentine in my eye. It's driving me nuts. I'm super distracted by it. It looks like I posted some pictures, some videos of people. I couldn't sleep, so I got up in the middle of the night and posted some videos over on gun channels from the various channels that went to Tulsa, and just to again to accumulate them all in one place so that we can see, you know, just how much stuff got created, and if somebody wants to browse through, they can get a little sample from everybody. And whenever I did that, I guess it pushed my zero video down off of the main screen. So it only displays this finite number of stuff from each person so that you don't get somebody in there and spam the whole thing. So I didn't even realize when I did that I was killing my own zero video.
It was still on the main screen for me this morning.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's just doing that for me then.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have found it because I just blow through that looking at what's going on most recently.
So we could do that. It's one of those things I wanted to start doing. So I try to do this in the middle of the night when I can remember to do it, and hopefully we'll get Night Striker or one of the other guys to help me out with this so that it happens even when I forget. But we put the schedule for the day up on the top of the main page on Gun Channels now, so that you can see what's happening throughout the day. And then we got this ad here. Every time you refresh the page, that's going to be a little different. So we'll take a little plug and say if you're going to buy anything from Brownells or Palmetto State, we have ads for both of those there. I don't think we even get 5%. So it doesn't cost you anything more when you buy the stuff through these links, but I think we get like 3% maybe. It might be 5%, but it's 5% minus fees and stuff. So anyhow, that's a little ad that'll happen, and then you get this main news feed. We posted our show here this morning. Patriot looks like he posted some of the stuff he bought off of gear websites. Really do appreciate that. He literally kept us in business last month. We're just right on the edge of not being here. So people that support us like that, buy stuff from the store, you know, it's product we already own. Really do appreciate that. That helps a lot. Like I mentioned, I posted some videos from Wanamaker, the stuff that the different channels that went had been posting. This one, I'm really happy. I don't know, by coincidence, it became the last one I posted. I was just trying to post them kind of randomly, and this one ended up being the last one. It's just a short video. It's like 4 minutes long, and it's Jesmla went through and interviewed, I guess, 6 of the ladies from, no, it was more than that. They just didn't even put them all here. Maybe, I don't know, 8 or 10 of the ladies from the show, and went through and asked them the same question, why do you carry? And it was just interesting to hear different ladies, different ages, you know, different lives, answers to that. So it's a cool little quick video, and pretty cool. Anyway, so there's a bunch of videos that people have been creating since Wanamaker. I just sort of accumulated them all there at the Wanamaker channel. Outlaw was live last night after Clover and after our show.
I'll tell you, I still,
you know, oh, you cut out, or I cut out.
I said I still am struck by the number of women that I heard say, I can't leave because I haven't found my gun yet at one.
Oh, the show. Because upset that not enough female guns were there, or that they didn't have enough time, or
probably because they wanted to look at everything that was there. But I don't know. It wasn't anybody I was talking to. I just heard the conversation in passing.
I hear you. Yeah, dude, just in the time that I've been going to shows, and I'm not that old. I guess I'm old, but it's amazing how many more women. When I was a kid, there was no women at gun shows ever. Maybe two wives. And that's certainly different now. There's little kids there. Little girls are going and buying stuff and having fun.
My wife sure enjoyed it. To the point she's saving money to go back. So we're planning to go back next spring.
I'm getting pretty good. I've been broke. I've been rolling my own, and I'm getting all good. Not quite as good as the cowboy I learned from, but I'm getting it. All right, so Clover had a show last night. It was pretty damn good. He does this Thursday show where it's kind of behind the scenes, what to do if you're creating stuff for YouTube or the internet. And he had the people on that had been to NRA, and they ended up having a pretty decent chat, and it was pretty cool. I threw some new stuff at him. Hopefully gave them some ideas for, challenge themselves for the next time they meet up at a thing. They were talking primarily at the NRA show about the difference NRA versus the SHOT Show with the number of people that were there, like just, as you call them, spectators, attendees, people that came to the event to check out the guns. And anyway, I just gave me an idea like, hey, that's audience. That's potentially, big channels spend a lot of money to drive around and do meet and greets. That's an opportunity to start out your experience with, or somebody's experience with your channel with a meet and greet. So it'd be interesting to see how those guys run with that. They always seem to figure out cool ways to run with these different challenges and what to call them, I guess challenges, things that you experience as you create content online.
I never look at it as creating content, what I do or what we're doing here. I suppose it is that, yes, but it's not. That's not the way I look at it.
Dude, a nickel's worth of math. There's how many gun owners in this country?
110, 120 million.
Yeah, I guess nobody knows, but we know it's at least tens of millions, right? Probably way at the high tens of millions. I think at the most conservative I ever heard was 30 million. So 30 million, how many can possibly even be on YouTube, like using YouTube? And then how many are making content and how many of them are doing it on a regular basis? I mean, there's people that have done things twice or three times or really, really want to do it, but only were able to do it twice or three times. So anybody that's questioning if it's worth doing their thing, I mean, put it in real life perspective. It is just the internet, I guess. But on the other hand, there's quite a bit of reach. It would be an interesting challenge to put out there to think about some of the interconnections that have happened just on gun channels, because it's easiest to do the ones on gun channels that we've seen happen. But people that have met up and people that have been able to collaborate on something, I can't even tell you over the years. It's the reason I keep doing it. I have never made, I have made money. I don't make any money over the last few years. The reason I keep doing it, I think, isn't because I'm crazy, but it's because of the just awesome inspirational stuff that you not even occasionally, you will eventually see, be part of, and it's just neat. And I think this stuff is really changing the whole thing, because you get enough people that can actually communicate with each other. You get things like the 2A rallies. You get enough of those 2A rallies happening, and we're not just some people farting around on the internet wasting our time. We're not just hobbyists or enthusiasts. We're activists. It only took 3% of the population to rip us off with a freaking English, make us the United States, and that changed the whole planet. It only took a few dudes with some bayonets at the Gettysburg to secure the Civil War for the North. And that was a heck of a big project, and it all could have turned things in just a couple of battles. So the efforts that individuals are doing out here, ideally it's fun for everybody, because it's just an entertainment and it's something to do, and it occupies everybody, but it's occupying people with a direction. Think about how many people just sit there playing crosswords on our books, like on a piece of paper, circling shit or writing words down. People playing digital versions of crosswords on the internets, making little pixels move around for satisfaction.
I can say with 100% certainty, without gun channels, there would be no early watch, at least not as it is now.
Probably not. It would at least taken a different form, but I suspect you guys would have still been antsy, getting sick of like having to read stuff when you know that there's ways that you could have a conversation about it or decide to seek out the stuff that's valuable and not just well, I don't think either one of you guys or any of you really that have been working on it would have said like, hey, I need to do something to put on a show.
Oh,
I don't get that impression, but obviously you weren't concerned and you weren't shy or anything as far as getting up and just having a conversation with people listening. I think that's super valuable. Goes a long way. You got
all right, which one of us is cut out? There we go.
You got just people listen to stuff like this, and it's different than the stupid radio. So everybody else that in the town listens to the whatever comes on before Rush Limbaugh, probably they all hear the same information disseminated, ill intent or not. And then you get somebody who comes in from something like a forum or an internet thing or like gun channels, and they come into the water cooler or the gun shop or the range or whatever with a different point of view. And now the conversation changes. You get 6 people that all listen to the same radio show. They show up and they say, yeah, or maybe they say no. But you know what I mean? Nobody says, hey, here's a whole different, here's a whole different angle at it.
That's kind of why, like the talk about accuracy this morning, I like to go different places than people are going.
With the topics of the day kind of thing?
Right, yeah, and I come from it as a FUD, to be absolutely honest. So, I'm wood and steel, blued, fine quality hunting rifle, butted up one side and down the other. But as far as gun rights go, that's not the case at all. But that's the way I approach guns. That's what I like. I mean, I would take a double barrel 12 gauge over a Browning Auto 5 any day of the damn week. Just because aesthetically I find that more pleasing. And, sometimes these old school ideas help people to understand how we are where we are today.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I'm fairly old, I've lived a lot of it.
Well, hopefully you'll be living a lot more of it too. So
there was an actual period where I did living history reenactments, colonial era.
In Illinois?
Yes.
Oh, I know. There's a couple of places, yeah, that they have like where Lincoln was around.
Well, this is before that. There's people here long before Lincoln.
No, but I'm saying I remember they had like a Colonial Williamsburg type of thing, someplace in Illinois where they have like the Lincoln Village and everybody.
Oh, yeah, that's
period. Is that in Springfield?
It's just outside of Springfield, New Salem State Park. It is
really. Is it literally the same place that Lincoln had his place, or is it just? Okay, so but it had like like a little bit of everything. They would make food and stuff, and people would buy the stuff and eat the food, and really cool.
If you hit it at times, you can see them doing the crafts and the stuff that go on. I actually volunteered for that thing, but my health went to shit. I could never follow through.
They could have had you as a patient, and they could have bloodletted you and shit in front of everybody.
Yeah. I would have been down with that probably. No leeches, though.
I was going to say, this guy just needs some leeches.
Nope. Fuck it. Let me die. But so I have a bit of the gunsmithing stuff from back in the flintlock days. I have did making springs and uh, case hardening or surface hardening prisons. Um, I've done a lot of different shit with guns, and I enjoy the muzzleloader flintlock stuff, but I don't own any of it now. I got peppered real good by a flintlock with a poorly drilled hole in the barrel that kind of burnt my eye, and I just, man, that ended me shooting them damn things right there. My brother-in-law had made one, and he angled the freaking hole he drilled because the actual hole in the barrel for the bolster for the cap he took off, suppression rifle, and he just put a slug in it and then drilled the hole, but he needed to get the hole back to the actual pan on the flintlock, so he drilled it at an angle, and that's when it shoots sparks back at your face when it went off. And he wore glasses, so it was no thing to him. Well, I'm out there displaying this stuff with no glasses like an idiot, and my eye got burnt, and I got spooked over that, and I couldn't shoot a flintlock worth of shit again after that. And that's how damn quickly that shit'll get you.
Yeah, think about that back in the olden days too. You never think about that, but none of them guys said there was no such thing. Well, I guess there was bifocals and shit, but I don't think anybody's seen anybody wearing a safety glasses or anything back in the day.
I'll tell you what, people today got no idea how hard fucking life was back in George Washington's day.
Oh, please. Just drive from one side of the country to the other and imagine doing that with nothing but leather, wool, and metal. And a horse.
No car.
Yeah, and yourself and a horse, maybe. A wagon or something.
There wasn't even a hell of a lot of horses. A lot of these guys were out traveling around with what they could carry.
Exactly. All right, so that was Clover's chat, and it was a pretty decent one. Knives had a night chat. Usually runs that for the whole length. We just talked about Dead Horses show. It's an excellent one. It's like Clover posted a thing about the Ruger at the NRA. Sandhills is out there now, I think, and he went live yesterday. I don't know if he posted it anywhere. Knives started up after this show, and that was everything that happened overnight. So they were talking about it on the YouTube side there that maybe Gun Channels needs its own YouTube or Instagram just for news, what's going on. Again, that's what the news feed is all about. It kind of depends. Gun Channel's going on its 5th year now, so over the time it's been around, things have changed a little bit. The crew kind of evolves, changes, people come and go. Some people have stayed the whole time, and one of the things that's been consistent is this main news feed, but the way people use it changes all the time. Right now, people are mostly using it to alert each other when the live stuff is happening, and then occasionally people are dropping stuff. But as people use their personal profile pages more heavily, then you'll see stuff showing up in the feed that's just their own. Like when I'll post pictures of album or pictures into an album, you'll see people just adding stuff to their own projects, and that'll show up as a reflection on the main page. And then people loading videos up, like I did on the Wanamaker thing. You'll start to see the main feed include stuff that's not just news of the day so much, or like an announcement for a new live show, but it'll also be an article about something in their area, something about Second Amendment, something about reloading that they had a question about. And then the main page of Gun Channels does become very much a firearm-focused live news feed. And again, for people that are responding to news of the day, it's not influenced at all by any kind of agenda other than the Second Amendment. So it's just really what people are interested in, what they're talking about, or what they're having conversations about.
I want to jump in there too and say, it's not that simple to just make another YouTube page and give somebody the task and responsibility of trying to disseminate all this information. Uh, most of us that are doing this are fairly busy trying to do what we're already doing. So to make just a YouTube news page for gun channels, if you think we need one, go ahead and knock yourself out. But those of us that are here doing are already here doing stuff.
Well, that's a good point too. And like you say, everybody's got their projects that they're doing and usually don't have extra time. So yeah, adding another burden or something would be pain. But that's one of my goals is to get a person for gun channels, or to start out, a couple hours a day or a week, whatever we can start with, but to do little tasks like that.
Right.
One of the things I'd like to do is like a weekly newsletter where we take the stuff from the live feeds or from the main news feed that's of interest, maybe a piece of legislation or a new gun or something that people might not have heard about, a live show that was interesting or something. And then every Friday send out a newsletter for the people that don't have the ability to listen to all this stuff because again, time's different for everybody. But that kind of thing, like you say, that's just not going to write itself. Somebody has to physically do it, and it'll take a couple of hours. Some of the just little stuff like distributing stuff around, alerting people, letting people know, and then putting out some announcements if there's something important or something coming up so that people can be alerted to it. But as far as the YouTube channel and the Facebook page and the Instagram channel, we have an example of that. Marco, back when we first started Gun Channels, about 6 months into it, or if I remember right, I had an Instagram channel for Gun Channels, and I was basically reposting stuff that people on Gun Channels were posting on Instagram. And Marco asked if he could help out with that, and he started to repost predominantly the people on Gun Channels, or if they had a picture of a Gun Channels G or something in a picture, and he just took over that burden. Let's say that task for me. It wasn't really a burden; it was just a task that I didn't always have time for. So he started doing that, and he really liked it. He was good at it, and he had a flair for it. And it was at a time when Instagram was just rocketing. And anyway, long story short, Marco has 300, almost 400,000 subscribers over there now, and he does that as his own project now. He definitely flew farther than Gun Channels was able to keep up with him. But that was an effort in Marco just helping out. So we do have the Instagram page. We do have a YouTube, and we do have a Facebook. As far as the Facebook, I've added, I don't know, probably a dozen people as moderators over there, and I let them, the people that are familiar and comfortable and appreciate the Facebook platform, I let them run the Gun Channel's Facebook. I have almost no interest in Facebook other than to acknowledge that there's billions of people on it. So it is a valuable resource, but I don't respect it much, so I don't hang out with it or on it. But if somebody's interested in running the Instagram or doing the Twitter or the YouTube even, then yeah, I would be more than happy to have people help out. And then again, eventually, what I'm going to try to use the Patreon for is to start paying somebody to actually do some of these tasks. Ideally, the Instagram for Gun Channels would just be reposting all the stuff that people are doing on Instagram who are on Gun Channels. The YouTube would be like a table of contents or an index of all the stuff that's happening on Gun Channels. Same with the Twitter and the Facebook. But yeah, those are good points. We don't really talk about them too much because we're kind of our own platform, but it is valuable to have presence on the other platforms.
Oh, I agree. But my point is that most of us are already doing stuff. So if somebody thinks we need something and they've got some free time, jump right in and do it.
Well, it sounds like Jasmine's already volunteered, so I'll wait for the email. He asked the question, so that's the same as volunteering, right?
Yeah, this whole early watch thing, I'm not, Jimmy's doing all of that. I'm not. Uh, I am doing a Facebook page for Illinois, but I just started working on that not a week or so ago. But, hell, sit most of the day and I'm trying to find inspiration for tomorrow's show. Something I want to talk about. And like today, it wasn't until I logged on and seen that zero video you posted that it struck me as something, there was something that I could do. So, when I say I've got nothing for the show, it's not because I didn't look, it's because I didn't find anything. And that's going beyond news. I don't look that much at news because I can't take the freaking stress of it. But I try to find stuff that I think people find interesting. And that I find interesting also. That's key. I have a hard time getting on here and talking about shit that I could give a shit less about.
Well, since we've got a minute here, and it's my video, and this is my video, I can play this one if you want. That'll give us a time to smoke a cigarette or something, and give people a minute to ask some questions and give us some fodder for talking or whatever. This is 7 minutes. Let's sit back, smoke them if you got them, but no talking. This will be a basic introduction to the zero on the AR-15 rifle. Now, you may or may not be familiar with what the zero actually is, or that in the AR-15 community, there is some debate as to the best zero for the rifle. So this will be some basic information for future discussion. We'll take a look at the definition of a zero, as well as 5 of the most common or most popular zeros for the AR-15. Most basically, the zero is the point of aim being equal to the point of impact on a target at a certain distance. We'll take a look at that in more depth. 5 of the most common zeros are the 25-yard, the 50-yard, the 100, 200, and 300 meter zero. I'll take just a moment to mention that in this video, this basic overview, yards and meters are very similar, so we're going to use them interchangeably in this discussion. So for a 25-yard zero. Also, I don't respect metric. We're going to aim at the X in the dead center of that bullseye, and we're going to adjust our sights until our point of impact is exactly the same as our point of aim. And it would be the same if we moved out to 50 yards and we were aiming at that X in the center. We would adjust our sights, and that would be our 50-yard zero, our 100, our 200, etc. Now, it may seem pretty basic, but let's take a look at how a bullet travels when it leaves a barrel. We're all familiar with a garden hose. If we hold that garden hose horizontal with the ground, we're not going to get much distance from that flow of water. However, if we angle the hose up just a little bit, we're going to get a little bit more distance, and at some point we're going to find the perfect combination or the perfect angle where we get the most distance from that flow of water. It's basically the same with the bullet. As it leaves the firearm, it's got a certain amount of energy, and it's going to be under the effect of gravity as soon as it leaves the barrel. So it's going to be fighting with gravity for a while. At some point it loses that fight, and then it'll drop down to the ground. So thinking about that basic concept, that theory, let's take it out to the range. So we've got our firearm over here, downrange at 300 meters. We have our silhouette target set up. Now our firearm has a barrel, and it has a front and a rear sight. So when we take aim on that target, we're looking down a straight path. But we know that the barrel is going, or the bullet is going to travel at a curved path. So getting that point of impact to be the same as that point of aim at that distance would be our 300 meter zero, or 200, 150, 25, and so forth. So now that we've got that basic concept of the zero down, we're going to take a look at how people describe the zero or how they compare the different zeros. And we're usually going to look at either a silhouette
with a bunch of different hits with some sort of a key to tell us at what distance those hits were, or we're going to see some sort of graph like this, which is basically telling us the same information but in a different way. It'd be pretty confusing, but you can see that when you compare the 25-yard or the 50-yard or the 100 or 200 and 300 zeros, you can see that each of these curves is a little different. The patterns on the target are a little bit different, but again, what is that information telling us? So let's take a little closer look. So let's use the 25-yard zero. It's got a pretty dramatic curve, good hit pattern, so I think it'll be the best for illustration. First, let's get rid of all the data points and take a look at the underlying grid that we're working with. Now, it's definitely out of proportion. We're talking about 500 yards this way on the bottom, but we're only talking about 2 feet here. We're 12 inches up, 10 inches down on the left side. So to make that a little easier to perceive, I'm going to stretch that out. So now it's the brick wall going down the side of a shooting range. We're standing here at 0, goes out to 500 yards. That's a little bit out of perspective still, because again, we're still only talking about 12 inches up and 10 inches down. But let's take a look and see if we can't figure out what some of this data is. So we're going to throw some targets up at each of the different distances, 25, 50, 75, all the way down. And let's start shooting. So this is a 25-yard zero. So at 25 yards, our hit is dead center where we were aiming. However, we know that even though our line of sight is straight down, we know that the bullet is going to travel a different path. So if we had another cardboard set out at 50 yards, that bullet is going to be on its way up. So that second hit is going to be just a hair higher on the target than that first hit was. Again, if we look at the 75-yard cardboard, it's now a hit even higher. 100 yards is even higher, and finally at 200 yards, it's reached pretty much the top of its trajectory, and we get a hit up in the neck or 9 inches high on this target. Out at 300, the bullet's starting to drop. It's losing its fight with gravity, and now it's down quite a ways. Again, 400, it's dropped even more, and at 500, it's missed the target. It's about 24 inches down, or the target's knees. So that gives us an idea of how that bullet is traveling, compared to our line of sight. Now that's going to be different on this 25-yard zero than it would be on a 50, 100, or any of these other zeros. So now let's see if we can't figure out how those graphs are showing us this. So again, we've got that same situation of the piece of cardboard at each of the different distances. We can see how that relates to the hit pattern here. But now let's just draw a line between each of those points. So we're going to go from 25 to 50 to 75 to 100, and you can see how that line is connecting all those hits. Now let's get rid of the targets, and I think you see where we're going. That's what this graph is basically showing us, that first hit at 25 yards was dead center, that next hit at 50 yards was just a little bit higher, and so forth. So let's take a look at the 50-yard zero, and it's obviously a much different pattern on the target there. We're seeing a different graph. The 100-yard zero, 200, and 300. Hopefully that will give you some information about what we're looking at in these graphs when you see them online. And again, this was just a basic introduction. We'll do more videos in the future. We can have a discussion now about these different zeros, and we're going to post this information in a PDF. Again, this was just a base.
And that's where I wish I would have done the next one, because this was all just lead up, because then it's all about what do you use these zeros for? Why are there different zeros? Like this 25-yard zero is used in different applications than, let's say, this 200-yard zero or the 100-yard zero.
Well, let me chime in here with something that I've discussed on this show once before. And there is a concept of sighting in a rifle scope. And I can't remember the freaking terminology they used. I think it is point blank effective range. And what that is you sight your rifle into where at any distance between you and your target, at the maximum range of your target, that bullet arc will be within the kill zone of the animal.
Yeah, exactly. That's at least the goal, right? Is to make it so that most of your hits are going to be where it matters. And then you are aware of where your flyers are going and where. I mean, where the target is in relation to your gun. And you know what I mean? So either your flyers are going to be real close or they're going to be really far away. And you just have to know where your where you need to rise up and shoot 3 feet over their head every once in a while.
But the idea behind this point blank thing is that you don't have to. You put the crosshairs of the scope on the vitals of the target anywhere between rifle and the maximum range of that setting will be a kill shot.
Right, and that's your 100, 200 yard zeros, and that's mostly your cops, people that are doing stuff in the first 100 yards, and then that way they don't have to be compensating almost ever. The only time they compensate is if they're way out past like 200 yards. So it's the same kind of thing with most hunting stuff. I would imagine, you know, a 200 yard zero works for you. So then the question is, with like a 200 yard zero, where is 200 and you know, what's the other measurement between 200 where you can put your target? So with this one, it would be at about 50 yards. So that's the 250. If you zero at 50 at your indoor range or at your range that only has 100 yards, you know that if you're dead on at 50, mathematically, you're also dead on at 200. With the 100 yard, I think it's 33 feet or something. So same thing, if you don't have a 200, 300 yard range to sight in on, you can sight in at 33 and you know that you're also dead on at your 300. And like what you're saying, that's like a cop one. They, you know, they're shooting close range, so they never want to compensate. They want to be dead on, and like you say, in the zone that matters for everything out to like 200 yards.
With me, when I'm sighting in my 30-06, I'll usually sight it in at 27 yards. And that'll give me pretty good accuracy at like 275.
And that's the thing. Like these curves are all 5.56. It's got to be different for every other caliber. I don't know what the zeros are for every other caliber.
Right. Yeah, and that's you have to.
But like
do
you say,
research.
A hunting caliber is going to have totally different requirements or uses for a zero. So it's going to not even care about 25 yards because nobody shoots a rifle at 25 yards. Where, I don't know, 9mm carbine probably doesn't even go out to 200, you know, because there's no point. Although you really don't need to zero anything within 100. There's no point in zeroing anymore.
I think that the reason people shoot high-powered rifles and zero them at short ranges is because that's what they got.
Well, yeah, most of the time it's because you can't go to a 300 yard range and zero at 300 yards. So you have to figure out what, like I say, 300 is, I think, 50. No, 300 is 33. Whatever the hell. Yeah, 300 is, yeah, something like 33, because that's the Marines. And they're more like, you know, they're competent. So they know that close in, dead on. 300 yards, dead on. Because at 300 yards, that's where Marines are deadly, right? At 200 yards, they're just going to shoot you for your neck. They can handle that. You know, they don't have any problem with that. But cops, if you did a 300 yard zero with cops, they constantly have to be correcting up into your chest somewhere. And that's ridiculous when they're never going to need to shoot to 300 and be dead on, right? So
Right.
got different, I guess, uses for these guns, different zeros exist. And that's why it's sort of frustrating when I had to sit around when I was more into this stuff, listening to people bitch and bicker about zeros. You know, you get a bunch of people who know what they're doing, cops, you know, people that do this stuff every day. They sit around bickering just like Night Strike and never enough ammo. It's just that they do it about stuff like what zero to use instead of what Palmetto State piece of crap to strap on an inexpensive gun. I shouldn't say Palmetto State's piece of crap. What type of piece of crap to put on their inexpensive Palmetto? Inexpensive yet
Well worth it.
Well worth it, and
Sick introduction.
And
we're only talking about
has a
2 feet
link
here.
on the main
12
page of
inch.
Gun Channels. So anybody that's interested in buying from Palmetto State, let's remember that there is this link up here.
I actually do a fair amount of zeroing, but I don't care what anybody else says. I do zeroing for my own personal purposes. So, and most of what I do is set up for the specific hunting that I'm doing. Like .22 rifles. I'm sliding them in at 25 yards because that's pretty much going to cover any damn squirrel I got. Because I hunt in fairly dense timber and you don't see them that far away. I haven't zeroed a centerfire rifle in a long time. A couple of years anyway. Last time I took that Savage out. I've got one to do. I've got a Remington 742 that I put a 410 by 50 millimeter scope on that I haven't sighted in yet. And I'm in no hurry. I mean, I'm not going to go coyote hunting with it because I'm not physically able to, so hell with it. You know, I've had the gun for over a year now and I haven't shot it yet. Same with my 223. I haven't shot it yet. I got both them guns the same day. I'm actually thinking about getting a chamber reamer and reaming that 223 out to 22 250. Because it's a bull barrel, it'd take it. And I prefer the 22 250 for coyote. Actually, I prefer that to 30-06. And if I could just ream the chamber out.
So what is that, like a something you put on a drill?
I think so, yeah.
Like a drill press or just a regular drill?
I don't know. I haven't seen one in person to say. I think you'd go on a regular drill. Basically a chamber-shaped drill bit. I'm sure that it takes a little bit of patience and time, and I don't know that I would do it myself. I would take it up and have it done so they could restamp the barrel and specify that it's 22 250 caliber, not 223.
Just take an engraving pencil and engrave it in there.
I don't have one.
I'm going to sidetrack. Anybody that knows about rolling your own cigarettes, when people do it by hand without some kind of gizmo, do you roll the filter in or do you somehow roll it and then jam the filter in? Because I've been trying it both ways and neither one is not good at either one.
You don't put a filter in it. You just smoke the damn thing.
I definitely can't handle that, so that's not working. I bought this pack of, I thought they were cheap cigarettes, but they're little tiny cigars, so they're super gross. But I'm using them to pull the filters off of, so I got like a pack of good filters. But what I've been doing now is I roll the cigarette and it just looks like a joint or whatever. And then it's I take the cigar thingy and sort of break it about 2/3 of the way in. And then I drop the tobacco out of there. And then I just put my cigarette joint looking thing into that. It's like a cigarette holder. And that lasts like 3 or 4 times, but then the filter gets gross. I think I'm just going to start going to the ashtrays and picking up people's butts. Just have a big Ziploc baggie full of butts. It'll be easier.
Next time you get a few bucks extra, go to Amazon and buy you a pipe.
No, seriously, that's what I thought. I had a corncob pipe. I couldn't find it anywhere. So I've been using these stupid papers that were in the top of the tobacco. Yeah.
I did that. I bought a pipe. As a matter of fact, I bought 2. Because I bought a clay pipe down at New Salem State Park.
Oh, I can't get clay pipes. That's the like guest pipes where you would break off the end every time somebody was going to use it.
Yeah, well, that don't work as good as you think it would.
No, my grandma used to have a couple though when I was a little kid and I broke them. But I was just going to get a corncob pipe. They cost like $2. Hypo was saying you heard cowboys did it with one hand riding their horse and shooting a gun. I can definitely attest to that. I know a cowboy in Wyoming and he could roll his without, you'd never know. I mean, it was cool. You could just, no matter what the hell was going on, it could be raining and shit and you're riding a horse and next thing you know, he rolled a cigarette and he's got it in his mouth.
My grandpa, York, rolled all his own. But, before I was a teenager, when I found this actually out, I've seen him do it. and it wasn't really conducive for me to ask him to teach me how to roll cigarettes.
Midnight is saying he thinks I would need a drill press or a lathe. I don't think you need any of that to roll a cigarette, dude. But do
It might make it easier.
Yeah, if he wants to do it that way, then that's his thing. But I don't think I need any of that.
Oh, you could drill out a freaking steel tube and then, put just a little pinhole in the end of it, just stuff it full of tobacco and smoke it that way.
Yeah, somebody said take like a big pen and roll the paper around that and then just fill that with tobacco. But two things, it's way too much because this is American Spirit tobacco. That would kill me. But it takes like 2.5 years to fill that paper tube. So I just have been getting better.
Have you ever tried one of them where you buy the papers already pre-rolled and you put them in this little machine thingy?
Yeah, I had that thing, and it was like a little gizmo, and you buy the little empty cigarettes basically with it's already rolled into a tube with a filter, and then you have this little gizmo, and it just magically fills it. But I threw it away years ago, but I had one of them. I'm just cheap, so I'm trying not to buy one. But somebody told me you get them for free if you buy tobacco, so I'm thinking I'm gonna go over the reservation and see how much a tin of tobacco costs. Maybe they'll throw one of those in. But the other thing is, I didn't like having that. You had basically a carton of cigarettes, except they were empty. So I don't know if you ever dealt with that, but they weren't in any kind of packs or whatever. So once you pulled like 5 of them out of there, they were just, unless you had somewhere like pristine to keep them, they would just get destroyed in there. Like if they fell off or if they like fell off a shelf, they would just get all broke. So they were kind of fragile.
My daughter had the rolling machine like that, and that's why I went to a pipe. Like I can go through all that bullshit. Pipe, you got a filter in it, and it's got a screen in the bottom. I believe I paid less than $20 for this pipe with the filters and screen, and I have yet to use a pack of filters. Of course, I haven't smoked a damn pipe in a couple months now.
Well, the thing is, like, Clover smokes a pipe, right? And it's nice. I don't mind this pipe smell or whatever. But this is cigarette tobacco, so I'd be wanting to inhale it, and I think it would just be a different situation. But I'm going to try it.
It works. It's just considerably stronger than a cigarette, so don't stoke the bowl completely full.
Night Strike's out there bitching and moaning about how he grew up on tobacco farms, having to pick tobacco because he has little hands.
I have seen all there is to see about tobacco farming. I lived down in South Central Kentucky for some months, and I had no idea that they had such a thing as a tobacco setter. They plant tobacco in the ground like you plant tomatoes in your garden. You get a plant, you put it in the ground. They start them from seed somewhere, I guess. I don't know. Didn't see that part, I reckon, so I don't know everything. But they have a gizmo that 2 people ride on. They're going along, and each person drops a plant into the road that this thing cuts, and this thing fills it in behind them. So I've been in tobacco barns, which actually made me sick as hell.
Oh, that's probably why they call it tobacco barn. I figured it's just because they built the place in a barn. Makes more sense. They
hang tobacco to dry.
Yeah, all right, now I get it. I've just been listening to this commercial for 20 years. Now I finally understand why they call it that.
But tobacco, you get in around it, and it, like when I was down there, I was going through there with no shirt on, so the stuff's rubbing on me, and I got way overloaded with nicotine, I think.
Oh man, that's poison. I was in plant science as a kid, and we would sneak a couple of tobacco plants in because we weren't supposed to, and we just did it because that's bug poison. You just turn them into bug poison.
Yeah, I got sick as a dog after being in that fucking barn. I assume it's nicotine poisoning.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just from us fucking with it in our own little, whatever you call, like whatever you want to call it, a little project garden, I guess, underneath the fluorescent tube. Just fucking around with the nicotine in there was enough to make you sick. So I can't imagine getting it all on your body and stuff. Holy moly. Well, you
Well,
probably got massive resistance to it, though.
The guy told me, his name was Johnny Maddox, the old dude. He told me, he said, you know, I'll show you this one time, but you really don't want to go in there while there's green hanging.
Why?
Okay.
Get all sick.
Yep. Yeah, I did. I got sick as shit.
Just breathing it all?
I don't know if it's breathing it all or because it's touching my skin in places. I didn't really waller in it.
Well, it's a contact poison for sure. I mean, it touches you, it absorbs, and it's in you. Like I say, you can kill bugs with it. In fact, you can just take a thing of chew, you know, buy a tin of chew and put water in it, let it kind of stew like a coffee, and then take that water and you can just touch a bug with it. It'll kill a bug.
Well, on a different direction for that particular topic, I'm wondering what the hell is in these LED bulbs that kill bugs. I have a little lamp over my head here, and I have dead bugs laying on my desk here every morning from this freaking light. And I seen it with the regular light bulbs because they were hot. These don't get hot. I don't know what the fuck it is, but it kills bugs.
I don't know if it's killing them or if, you know, bugs don't live that long. If they just die trying to touch the bulb, you know, they just sit there, because that'll happen here. Like a moth or something will just sit there spending its whole freaking night smacking into the bulb. You know,
It
like,
makes me worry about having the thing a couple feet from my head all the time.
definitely don't want it over a cup of coffee or nothing.
Shit, no. I actually take paper towels and tear them in half to blow my nose with here because I have sinus issues all the time, and then paper towels lay underneath this light bulb, so I really see the bugs every morning when I come out. And it's just starting now because we're getting spring and bugs are coming back. Yeah, these LED lights fucking kill bugs just as good as any other light. And it's not particular about the kind of bugs. It's gnats, flies, mosquitoes. I don't believe I've ever seen a spider there.
Well, spiders aren't stupid. They're not going to climb up into a light. Unless it's to make a web.
But yeah, I've thought about that a couple of times. Wondering what the hell's killing them bugs and what light's doing to my fucking brain.
Well, you know, electricity's on 60 megahertz, and that's the same frequency as the brain. So, constantly being programmed by the electricities.
Is
All you
that
gotta do is,
different so much when they shut the power off?
you ever go up to like a power line, right? They all have those guy wires, and you smack on them, and you know, it goes doing, right? That's what they do with the electronic lines on the electrics. They just tap those in a certain frequency. Or
You
a
know
certain
why they did that, right?
What?
Because 60 hertz, it is the frequency of your brain and it keeps you awake. So the plan was that having electricity, especially back in the day, pumped into your house, made you unable to sleep. So you used more electricity to keep the lights on.
There you go.
Hey, no, what's happening?
What's up, grumpy old man?
Unfortunately, nothing. It's a sign of aging.
I love you because I get to call you grumpy old man. At least I think you're older than me.
Oh no, I'm 56.
Yep, you're older than me.
I'll be 57 in a couple months.
I'm nipping at your heels, trying to take your mantle.
But it ain't the age, man. It's mileage.
Age and treachery over youth and enthusiasm every time.
You know, I've spent the last 40 years letting life try to kill me.
Sadly, I know that feeling. It actually succeeded 2 times, but only temporarily.
Now I've had two of my doctors that I currently see ask me why I ain't dead, because it should be. I don't know.
The
They're
funny
like,
part of the funny part about it is they don't seem to understand the irony of when they tell you, I have no clinical medical idea why you're still alive. It's like, okay, did you sleep that day through school? I mean, did you not go? Were you at the bar?
dude, I ain't dead because my heart's still beating and my brain's functioning. Now, why those two things are occurring, I don't know. That's probably the electricity. But the last doctor I had tell me that was when I got this pacemaker put in, and he's looking at the scans and seeing the stents I have in my heart. He said, "There's no way you should be alive with that much friggin' metal in there, dude. What do you want me to say?"
Well, as long as I have to do all the work here and provide all the information, how about I just bill you and your insurance company?
That's a goddamn good idea. See, I was actually pronounced dead when I was an infant, right after I was born, and a nurse resuscitated me. And I figure everything after that's a free ride because I've already been dead.
Yeah.
Do that shit again.
It's actually a good philosophy. Get that dead shit out of the way right at the beginning, and then
Yep.
you can live your life however you like.
That's pretty much the way I've been going at it. They're like, you realize that smoking's going to kill you. I said, well, I've tried to kill myself with every other goddamn thing out there and ain't managed. So when they take x-rays of my lungs and say, God damn, it don't look like you've smoked at all.
Every cigarette you smoke takes 3 minutes off of your life. Yeah, but they're real shitty 3 minutes at the end when I'm in a wheelchair in a puddle of my own piss, and like,
Yeah.
I could do without those 3 minutes, so I'm good.
That's I wake up every fucking day surprised that I ain't dead, to be honest with you. Not so much lately since they got this pacemaker in there. It's a little bit different, but I really, if I had to do all over again, I wouldn't get it. I'd say fucking write it out the best I could without it. I wouldn't go through this bullshit again because it fucking hurts.
Especially nowadays, they have those automotive booster boxes that are basically the size of a portable hard drive. I'd just like be carrying one of those around, because imagine how much fun you could have in a restaurant. Like, you're just hanging out there and you start to defib and you grab that thing out of your pocket and you just yell clear in the middle of the restaurant. We used to have to keep one of those things when I was a motorcycle and HVAC and wheel school and all that training thing, especially for the police departments. You have to have like full suite medical. And a few years ago, at least in New York anyway, they made one of those portable defibrillator kits mandatory. You can't give those to a bunch of motorcycle dudes without parental supervision. It doesn't work.
Shit, you shouldn't give them to any male without parental supervision. I can see it now. He's going to hook one to his leg and one to her leg and see what happens. Let that one sink in for a second, guys.
Yeah.
So you were talking about dying as a baby. So I saw this on Schwell's feed today. That was pretty cool.
I saw that this morning.
Yeah, so I guess he was on his way home. Looks like he's in his patrol vehicle and his stuff still. So he was literally just coming back to the police station or something, and it got flagged over. And he saved that little baby, took it to the hospital, and they did whatever they needed to do to save the little baby. That's pretty cool. See all this shit about cops being dicks and being bad and all that. this stuff gets overlooked too much.
Well, I don't think there's many dick cops out there. Is the fact that just usually when you interact with the police officers, we can enforce the law upon you. You don't see them as much just out and about, or you don't interact with them as much just out and about. Usually it's when they pulled you over for a traffic violation or some shit like that.
So next, let's talk about this one. This one seems to be getting all kinds of debate. Do you guys follow Vickers on the Instagram? No? Am I still connected? What's going on? Hello?
Hello.
Okay. So do you guys follow Vickers on the Instagram at all?
Yeah, when I do my once a month or once every 2 month blow up Instagrams check in.
Tony, you know who we're talking about? Vickers? Tactical? Oh, he must have won. So anyway, Vickers did this thing where he says it's way past time to put this out there again. I thought this was a multi-page one. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, it's I guess Merriam or Webster's is now defining assault rifle as an intermediate range magazine fed military rifle that can be set for automatic or semi-automatic. Also, a rifle that resembles a military assault rifle, but is designed only for semi-automatic. And then I guess his point is there's an assault rifle and then there's an assault weapon, and that there's some difference there. So it's gotten quite a bit of comments, and seems like there's advocates for, I think, the whatever you'd say, both positions on this. What do you guys think?
Well, I stepped out to get a cup of coffee, so I didn't hear
It's stupid.
it. Yeah. As far as the terminology part of it is just they're fucking anything to get guns out of our hands is the way I'm looking at it. I mean, military style, assault rifle, fuck. It's a gun.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this conversation a million times. You want to split grammatical hairs with these people. You want to split intellectual hairs with them. You just end up looking petty. And you know, what's their big argument? Well, they're all emotional and we're not emotional because we don't have emotions. And so it's just one of those things. It's like, you know what? You learn what you need to learn before you want to have an intellectual conversation with me, because I don't enter into a battle of wits with somebody that comes unarmed. And that's the end of it, because the rest of it is sound bites and it just fuels a stupid media fire.
My position on it is there's lots of levels to a conversation. So there's the immediate conversation you have with the person, and then there's the people that maybe witnessed that or are aware of it because it's archived or, you know, documented somehow. And then there's just the concept of talking points and strategy for discussion and strategy for overall direction. As a industry or community or culture, whatever how we're called, or however we want to consider ourselves unified for the Second Amendment. So when I see that the concept of assault rifle and the connotation that the word assault has, and the validation that it gets by being in Merriam's, by being in Webster's, I guess, that's I see as a loss. And I understand that it's frustrating that they're going to use a set of tools that are less comfortable or less effective, or more comfortable for them or easier for them to wield, meaning words and social blah blah blah. But I think um, as people who are interested in defending all the things that we find important, we don't get to always choose the battlefield. We don't get to choose the weapons, and I think we do ourselves a disservice to allow them to run rampant. And that's where I see this. I don't agree with them that you can split hairs between assault rifle and assault weapon. Having a discussion between rifle and weapon is one I'll gladly have with anyone, anytime, because I think that's another strategic one that we lose the war on often. But if we're
Well,
going to allow them both of the terms to have the word assault, and again, the connotation that brings to it, I think we do ourselves and freedom a big disservice if we allow them that concession, that um, compromise in the verbal war.
well, here's the thing. You said there's different levels, and I agree with you. And the only level that, to me, that is valid on is the legislative level. And what I mean is, if you quote unquote represent the people, and your knowledge of the thing that you're trying to regulate is 30 clipazine round whatever, okay, yeah, then you need to be
Use an
beat half to death
uneducated,
with Webster's thesaurus.
if
Okay,
they're going to legislate with ill-defined or undefined terms, you mean?
absolutely, because we all know that law is nothing more than a manipulation of words. They're not written in English. They don't use Webster's dictionary. They use their own dictionary. Um, and those words are intricately crafted by professionals who aren't politicians. Okay, so in that arena, on that level of the argument, I absolutely positively agree with you. On the level of somebody in my face telling me that we need to ban assault weapons, if I take my shoe off and beat them over the head with it, guess what? It's now an assault weapon. I mean, that's like I say, the level of the argument. There is that time that I absolutely agree with you that the grammar matters. Okay. And when you say you can't pick your fights, you can't pick your fights. You can't. Yes, I can. I can pick my fights. I can choose not to fight. Okay. I can choose to fight my way. I can choose to fight by my own rules. Okay. However, when you enter that political arena, then no, if you want to play in their, or as my friend used to say, fornicate in the matrix, that's what he called it. If you want to fornicate in the matrix, then yeah, you need to play by their rules. And guess what? Their rules are stacked so that you always lose.
Well, hold on. You're right. So they're stacked for sure, but we don't always lose. But you can decide when you're going to fight. But if you want to fight them when they retreat to their areas of strength, then again, we have forces that go in and do stuff in places where it's not easy. And not everyone is, you don't send everyone into those places. It's not necessary or strategic. But again, if we are going to allow them to create resource over there, if we're going to allow them to put things into the dictionary literally that they are going to use against us, there's nothing about this being in the dictionary that's positive for the firearms. Nothing about it.
I agree completely.
So
And
this is
the other point you bring up
let
is,
me finish though. If we don't take the fight to them, if we continue to allow them to set up ambush points, and the only time we have any interaction with them is either in the ambush point that they've already set up, which is always after an atrocity, then we're going to continue to have the same results. If we want to stop them from allowing this kind of stuff to just happen, then we need to start bringing the fight to them. And I really do believe that if we bring the fight to them, they aren't fighters. They are not people who are looking to fight. They're retreating because I think that we have to look at it in a bigger scheme. The reason that they're fighting like this, the reason they're retreating, is because they don't have the public opinion on their side. They don't have the facts on their side. All they've got is the media manipulation that they still have available to them. So we can either sit it out and wait and hope that I'm right, that the new media will trump the old-fashioned dissemination of information, and the new libertarian, more open-minded type of thinking will pervade, and times will change. I think that can happen, but I think another option is to take the fight to them, to the point where when they understand that there's nowhere comfortable to be when they fuck with us, then leave us alone already. So I think it's useful to have some people that are interested in taking on these casual concessions, these casual compromises, because I take this as a massive compromise. This is a massive compromise. If we do nothing, that's an action. If we do nothing when they put this in the dictionary, that's a deliberate action on our part to allow them to take that ground.
Hey, I'm with you there on a bunch of it. The first thing is, not everybody fights the same way. Not everybody's good at the same thing. Okay. So if a fight is brought to you and you are a person who's ill-equipped to deal with that particular arena, shut up. Okay. Because all you're doing is making things worse. The second thing is, historically, all of the most damaging gun control has come under Republican governments. Okay. That was known when Donald Trump got elected president. And we had a lot of conversations. That was the time we needed to not be complacent. That was the time we needed to step up. That was the time we needed to bring them the fight. And that's absolutely true. And there was a lot of activity on the state level where that actually happened. Okay. And that, I feel, needs, like you say, that needs to be brought up more to the federal level. As far as language goes, welcome to the internet. They changed the definitions of words randomly. That's why I said to entertain a battle of grammar, you need to again pick that arena and make sure that it's appropriate in that arena. And again, like I said, not everybody fights the same way. Not everybody fights the same thing. You just said, if I choose not to decide, I still have made a choice. Yes, song. Or Rush, forget. But in any event,
I think it's
okay.
Rush.
In any event, it's the same thing with voting. It's the same thing with government participation. It's the same thing with everything else. Okay. There's a time to speak up, and there's a time to just turn around and say, shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about, and take action from that standpoint. There are people that play well in the system. There are people that don't play well in the system. And that seems to be a point of contention amongst us when we fight amongst ourselves, FUD, sport shooters, this or that or whatever, and all of that stuff. And the fact of the matter is, not everybody's the same person, not everybody's the same way. And we demonstrate intolerance towards each other at times that rival the intolerance that anti-gunners represent to us. And that stuff's got to stop.
Well, okay, it can stop, I guess, in Star Trek land, but in real life, we just have we're just different people, and we just all happen to like firearms. So it's the same way as saying, like, well, you all drive cars, so come on, get along. I mean, it's just not going to happen, right? You all drive a vehicle, get along. But how we can adjust to those differences and figure out ways to ignore all that when it's important, which is most of the time, and then move on. And the open communication is going to be a lot different. These older people who are isolated from the conversation are only isolated from the conversation because they didn't bother to learn all this new stuff. But that will eventually not be the same dynamic, right? All the old people will be online at some point.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, from my perspective, strictly as conflict resolution manager, which is what I've been my entire life, okay, the easiest way for them to win this is simply by attrition. Generation after generation after generation becomes less and less and less. Forget even, I'm not even going to say pro Second Amendment. Okay. These people, like, they're not even concerned about their rights. Okay. They are in such a frenzy to give up their control to the government, quote unquote. And so the battle to me, especially now that I'm older, okay, I don't play the political game well. You know that. Okay. What I do well is set a good example and be an ambassador and expose people to it. Especially, I happen to be, for whatever life reasons, surrounded by generation ages 28 to like early 30s. I have a lot of those in my life. Okay. And a lot of them were cosmopolitan, liberal, zany, crazy, you know, whatever people that just needed to sit down and see that what they're being fed isn't the truth. Okay,
No,
that
that's
what
an alternative, because a lot of times when they're only fed one side, why would they even consider the other side as a position that they might want?
exactly. So I mean, we've said that a lot of times before, and it's something that I took to heart. I feel personally, the best thing that I can do is be an example of being independent, being an example of being um, I hate using the words, okay, but being the quote unquote alpha male and not being the cook. And I don't use those words in the conversations with these people, but the idea is you are a driver, not a passenger. Stop being a passenger.
Hmm.
Okay. Take control of your life. Don't ask me to do it. Don't ask mommy and daddy to do it. And certainly don't ask the government to do it.
The people who are, yeah, feeding them that concept are the ones that are usually the ones with, that should get the most scrutiny, right? No matter what it is.
I mean, to me, yes, and I understand that there are people that are absolutely positively unreceptive, closed-minded, and like the Steven Crowder thing, you will never change their mind. Okay, those people are so far off the reservation, it's not funny, but you can make them implode with a myriad of other topics besides guns, which is always fun to do. So if I see somebody that's rapidly out of control, the first thing I'll do is change the subject from them being butthurt over guns to them being butthurt over something else, and it's just entertainment. Um, but for the most part, what I find are people that are actually uncomfortable in saying they don't know, uncomfortable in knowing that they're taking one side of a story and running with it. And as soon as I see just that slightest little spark of self-doubt in them, then that's a person that that you can open up, and those people become, it's not just the firearm at that point. The firearm just becomes an actual window into self-empowerment, self-control, and not having to be at like everybody else's beck and call. So I see it, like I said, at least me personally, I see a lot of people that are actually quite offended now that the liberal left has gone so far that they're eating their own.
They're offended, and because of it, they're eating their own, or they're offended because they're eating their own?
The left has become so fractured that everybody can be browbeaten and abused for something. So people on the left are finding themselves victim of the extremer left now.
Right. Well, that's sort of like petty shaming or whatever. Yeah, they figure out it doesn't even have to be even more extreme. It can just be, like you're saying, the same thing that we have with the FUDs or whatever, the dynamics we've got. And it's not just with regular shooters against FUDs. It's just as much with these people against them, or I don't know why you need that much stuff on your Glock, or I don't know why you need to spend that much on a shotgun. There's just so many different things that it's just their way of bickering, perhaps. And like you say, they're figuring out that if your tactic is to just shame, and the only appropriate reaction to being called out is to stop, then they're figuring out that they can do that to each other. And it doesn't take the more extreme one. It can, they're just bickering with each other that way.
Exactly. And what that opens the door to is the argument of, you know, now they came for me type of deal. At least part of what I'm seeing as far as, and once again, this is a sample of one. This is me. This is my personal life. This is not social media. This is like actual real human contact. Okay. What I'm seeing is people who are on the left actually becoming more afraid of the extreme left, saying, hey man, the crap that they say about you for your Second Amendment rights, now they're saying that crap about me because I don't agree with them here, I don't agree with them there. And like I said, I'm sure a lot of it has to do with the age group that I'm talking about, which, like I said, late 20s to maybe 40, but the bulk of it is late 20s to early 30s. I'm sure there are people much younger that I'm just not around on a regular basis that aren't like this. But at least to me, again, my feeling is those people are an arena that I can operate in. Those people are an arena that I can most benefit, if you want to call it the cause, most benefit the cause by. And so, like I said, that's my thing. I mean, you don't want me speaking in front of Congress. You don't want, me playing the political game, because I don't. So again, it's where do we function best? Where do we fight best? And to me, that's always a reflection of how we live our lives personally and what our values are and what are important to us. I do not value government. That's no surprise to anybody here that knows me. I do not value government at all. Okay, the entire concept has spiraled out of control to the point of ludicrousy. Hi, Moon.
Hello.
Now that you're here, can we get into some real tinfoil conspiratorial anti-government stuff?
Sure.
You want to start with lizard people and go from there? You want to work up to lizard people?
We were talking about Vicker's post on Instagram. Did you see that one about the assault rifles versus assault weapons?
Yeah. Yeah, to me, if the media is going to use it, they're just they're interchanging them. So they're using it to put a certain idea in people's minds, whether they say rifle or weapon. Because if they ever did ban rifles, they'd be calling Glocks an assault weapon next. So they're just interchangeable for them. I don't think that Vickers should have tried to justify the difference between the two when there's really no I don't know, there's no discernible difference of a definition written by anybody besides the Nazis.
Yeah, exactly. It's like sticking your hand in Nazi tar. Like, here, let me just organize this. Let me just straighten this out real quick. You ain't gonna come out of that clean. There's no win. They win on every angle there.
Yep.
It basically said, here, we can call it an assault rifle, or we'll call it an assault weapon. So.
Yeah,
no.
And again, unless their choice of words has some substantial legislative weight behind it, they're just uninformed. Okay, and
that's dismissing a massive move on their side. When it's in the dictionary, assault rifle is in the dictionary. It's a massive. The difference between rifle and weapon is none. It's the assault, something in front of the gun, is what their win is, and to dismiss it, to say that it's, unless it's an official like definition that has consequence, I think is not looking at the bigger picture. When it's in society, it's giving a significance or whatever to something that's going to be now used in society. That's going to be culturally pervasive. And
Okay, so hold on a second. Before the Merriam-Webster thing, as Second Amendment activists, hasn't the argument been made that an assault rifle is a select fire intermediate caliber weapon?
oh, I don't know. I think that that's a bigger debate because I've never had any. I'd say that there is no definition of assault because, like you saying, there's no federal definition of it.
That's exactly my point. Even before this definition existed in Merriam-Webster, all you need to do is go back and search anybody's arguments over what an assault weapon is. And the Second Amendment community has always had the thumbnail definition of it's a select fire intermediate caliber weapon, period. Okay. And so what they said is our AR-15s are not assault weapons because they are not select fire, and select fire is the determining characteristic and all that stuff. Okay, so again, to me, it's meaningless simply because we argued that point anyway, and that's rampant out there. Like you can find that anywhere, and so now it's just in Webster's.
Well, I think you're just dismissing it because you're so familiar with the topic. But for someone who's being born today and they're fresh and they do whatever education and they get to a point where they question and they go to do research, that again is giving a significant amount of credibility to the concept that a firearm can have the intent. And in this case,
I think some people argued that, but I think it was bleed over from maybe military talk. Like military might have used that term, assault rifle.
Well,
no, just
yeah,
the
I mean, it was.
And the politicians, but the military never used that word at all. In fact,
Yeah, then I don't know why pro-gun people. I guess they went and looked it up and where that was their argument, but I never used that argument because I knew where the term came from. It was coined by the Nazis.
Exactly.
And when I say that you should fight, the terminology is because culture, politics is downstream from culture all the time, at all times.
That's a good way to say
So
it.
the more you can change the culture, the more it'll affect what type of politics people are likely to be in favor of.
That's a perfect way to
So
say
I
it.
think culture's the root.
Yeah, this emboldens something in the future that I'm afraid of. Like I don't know what's coming from this, but it's going to be something that's going to use this as a justification. Like, oh, it's
Yeah,
even in the dictionary.
but here's the thing, Moon. I agree with you completely, but culture is not evolving culture. Your government is evolving culture to meet their end. Okay, so as much as you can say that legislation, yes, political legislation is downstream of culture, but the government is controlling culture and steering it at this point.
I'd agree with that to a certain extent, but there's still always stuff that it's almost like I'd hate to call the rest of us criminals and the government's the cops, but we're always one step ahead, culturally ahead of the government. They're always behind, and I think
Hey,
that
there's always going
we'll
to be
always
that.
have the dominant effect over.
That's it. There's always
Culture.
going to be that dude that lives in the sewer and eats rat burgers. You know, and hey, that's probably where you'll find me. Dennis, what was it? Dennis Leary?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, now we got dead air. So
Well, we were waiting for your leadership.
I'm over here trying to do stuff. Got 13 people watching.
Dear Merriam-Webster.
Oh no, I do the early watch show, but I've got a strict schedule I'm trying to work on here to stay afloat. So
Well, when you sent me the link, we were talking about zeroing guns, and by the time I actually got in here, we are talking about rolling cigarettes. So
yeah, exactly. That's why I figured. Well, I don't know. I guess Tony had to ditch out, but I thought maybe you were saying something in there. I think when we were talking about zeroing before.
oh yeah, all I said was just use a 338 Lapua, and you can just hold dead center chest like to 800 yards without a problem.
Yeah, and so that's the thing that when I made that video, I was really trying to just some of the charts that everybody was just using. They mostly those pictures of a silhouette target with all the holes in it. Everyone was just talking about those as if everyone was aware of what those groupings signified, right? And I was fairly aware, but I wasn't fluent with it to where it was distracting, right? Whenever I was watching the instruction. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go in and just make that as a supplement or whatever. But now that I watch it years later, what it's missing is the reasoning for why you'd have those 5 different zeros and why there's 5 of them and not 2. And then, like what you're saying, why they apply to the AR-15 and not something like a caliber that's going to shoot much more close to the line of sight.
Well, yeah, I mean,
anywhere near that kind of discrepancy over distance.
yeah, the trajectories are dependent on your gun, your caliber, your round, your whatever. I mean, I'm assuming that you probably used the trajectory of a standard 5.56 out of a, what are they quoted out of a, believe they quoted out of a 20-inch barrel. That, by the way, that was at one of the first videos that I ever saw from you, because I was having that conversation with people about zeroing their guns. And I like did a YouTube search and that video came up, and that was actually one of the first videos I ever saw from you.
Ones I like to make the most, but they take probably 2 days to make that, so it's just not cost effective. There's no way to really pay for it to do them.
Yeah, but one of the things, like you're saying, is that you can start off with a ballistic table and get a trajectory and determine scratch sheet zeros, but then you have to understand the process, because every caliber, every gun, and every different load is going to be the same. So the deviation between like a 55 grain NATO Federal and a 55 grain NATO Winchester, the fact that you're using NATO makes those variances pretty much, insignificant. Okay. But when you get into some other calibers, or when you start using widely varying loads, okay, a 77 grain Black Hills is not going to have the same trajectory as a 55 grain. And so you need to be able to understand that concept of zeroing, okay, to be able to set where you would like your zero. And then which one you pick, obviously, is based on where do I feel that I'm going to spend most of my time engaging targets.
And how? Like I say, if they're the cops who are going to be running their guns around, lifting them up and down like a fire hose or something, and nothing out past maybe 50 yards or something, inside of buildings and stuff, that's a totally different use than somebody sitting on a hill trying to repel people walking up the hill.
Yeah, exactly. And anybody that's done mount police snipers and stuff like that, firstly, now they're using 308s, but back in the day they used to use 223s because they weren't shooting long distances. They did not have 500-yard zeros. They had 300-yard zeros, but what the trick there was, police snipers and urban snipers shoot at way higher angles of attack than most people do. And so you have that thing thrown in there, and how the angle of attack affects your trajectory.
Come on, man.
Yeah, I never thought of it. If you were like a police guy in a hot air balloon, you wouldn't have to zero it at all. It would be like
Just drop
point
it.
of impact, point of aim all the time. Yeah.
But seriously, I think of it as like shooting shotgun. If you shoot trap or whatever, you're trying to hit stuff on the arc going out to the thing because that's consistent. Or as the thing's going up, you both want to hit it while your shot is on its way up and
Mm-hmm.
the target is on its way up. And if you try to hit a bird when it's on its apogee or whatever it's called, and it started to come down, you've got way more math. Like there's way more stuff going on when it's moving away from you and changing speed and height and direction. I mean, that's all kinds of numbers, and your round is now doing everything. So think about how difficult it is to hit something when both your shot is dropping potentially and your target is dropping. I mean, that's just tough. So it's the same thing with a bullet. It's easy enough to keep track of it when everything is going fairly straight, but when it starts to drop, they drop significantly. So when you're talking shooting from a high distance, that's playing with that whole part of the curve, which is exponential. Like you don't get the easy straight part of the curve. You get the worst possible part of that curve, and you'll usually have to be right the first time.
Right. Well, very, very few people actually do the math unless you point it out to them, and they're like, "Oh, I need 12 clicks up. I need this. I need that. I need whatever." And then when you get a long range shooter and you actually show them the math, yeah, you're holding like 86 inches high after you're done with all your clicks and stuff. I mean, you have 20 MOA scope mounts just so you don't run out of vertical adjustment, because people don't realize what you just said. Exactly, when a bullet starts to drop, unless it's a very specifically engineered caliber for long distances, the bullet shape, the bullet weight, and the speed of spin, once they start to drop, yeah, they come down like Moon is saying, like you're being shot down out of balloons.
And they're also going to have more variants out there. You're not hitting a postage stamp anymore. You're hitting a tin can. So yeah, it's tough.
Oh yeah, and the other thing too, which I just learned because that's how I was taught. Um, elevation is math. Reading the wind is voodoo, divining rods, chicken bones, magic sticks, whatever.
Experience.
What?
Experience. You have to have trigger time.
Absolutely. And again, because most of my background and experience is in urban stuff, it's like you learn things of, oh, you're shooting through a cross street. Well, that cross street's a little Venturi wind tunnel that's got like 30-mile-an-hour winds that the bullet's going to be in for 0.005 seconds. And then you're going to get the next street. So, 6th Avenue may drift you to the left and 7th Avenue may drift you back to the right. So in that standpoint, it's got its, like every terrain has got its own unique little flavor.
I don't feel like you need to shoot in city streets to hunt deer.
Well, no, that's what the Second Amendment is for, right? The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
All right. So let's see. There was something else that I was going to bring up, and now I can't remember. I'm looking through the comments to see if that's what made me
You were
think
in
of.
you were in the Instagrams when I hopped in. Was it an Instagrams thing?
No, I've closed all that, but it's something that wasn't quite with the zeroing, so I didn't want to interrupt the flow of what we were talking about. But
Height over bore?
no, I don't even know if it was an AR thing. I think I saw something in the chat, and like I say, it was a diversion from the topic, so I didn't want to just throw it in there. All right.
Let me look.
Because a bunch of people didn't hear about No before, so yeah, we're doing the early watch for Jimmy and Tony. So just noticed a bunch of guys on Gun Channel, so I threw some links out there. and that's why there's a little bit different people in here potentially than they've had in the past. I don't have access. I see Night Strike's out there. Night Strike, when you get some time, get with me. I want to find out if I can have access to the early watch thing, so I can figure out how you guys are doing the the collaboration with the news articles and stuff, so I can try to help out making that easier for Tony, and then how we can start to incorporate that over into Every Second Matters. So again, I think I'm going to start to wrap it up. Sorry.
I was going to say, I'm just looking through the comments in the YouTube, I mean, on the gun channel side of it, and actually somebody brought up a good point that goes into what Moon said about culture, is video games. And there's a video game, I guess, called Fortnite that calls them assault rifles, and actually, especially gun culture, how much of it comes to the video games. And it's Patriot in the gun channel side, and he was saying that his daughter had some friends over to play video games, and he went over the rules of firearm safety with them. And he said they were, like, in the context of them playing the video game, he said they got into it, and which is a cool thing. So like I said, I mean, that to me is like cool stuff. It ties in what Moon was saying about the culture part of it and the ability to make a difference.
Yeah, but it's just taking a second to do it, right? And then letting people know about it so now somebody else can do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's just a difference of it. You're going to sit your kid down at the kitchen table and say, now we're going to go over the rooms of firearm safety. And then you get that walleye look from them. But in this particular context, it sounds like the girls engaged it wholeheartedly. And his quote was that it impressed him. So that's awesome.
And there's like a 50-50 good and bad. There's a balance in everything, I think. It's yin and yang world we live in, universe. But
I think you're wrong.
But like he was saying before, video games. The kids that are going to grasp being able to lead a target at the skeet range have probably played more video games than most kids. So that's where they first grasp the concept of leading the target. Flight simulators and shooters. As they get more realistic, they're putting bullet drop and
even
elevation and windage.
Game, like even this toy and puzzle games and stuff will have gravities and what do they call that? Physics.
Yeah.
Oh,
so, I don't know what they're doing or what they had in mind, so I don't want to just assume nothing, but there are some tricks with the Google Forms where I'm hoping we can make basically a form you guys can use and just drop it in there, select your state, and then it'll get displayed in the right place, and then it's also available for the guys when they do the show in the morning. And the way that it comes into them, they can then keep track of it. I don't know if you guys remember when Jimmy was doing the Ask Gun Question stuff, but very similar to the way we have the AskGunQuestions.com set up, so that it's just one form for everybody to use, and it all just gets disseminated in a way that's efficient for these guys. And then, there's no complicated procedure for everybody. You just go to the form and fill it out when you find something interesting. Because then we can display that everywhere. Display it on gun channels, display it on Every Second Matters, display it on Early Watch Nation, and then, again, trying to be efficient.
We can get tattoos. Tattoos.
Tattoos are so like 90s. I'm thinking everybody can get gun channels logo scars. Forehead scars.
Actually, scars was before tattoos back in
retro.
Late 80s or early 90s. Branding yourself was a thing.
Branding's too easy. People think we just accidentally got burned in the shape of a G, but a scar, like a big risen welt, intentionally looking like a G with a gun in it. That'll start a conversation about guns.
Okay, so then what we need is like to have somebody make a mallet with the gun channel's logo in it, and you can just go around and bash people in the forehead and they have their little G mark.
All right, now it's gone off the rails. So there's no way to recover from that. It's gone. So
on that note.
Yeah, exactly. On that note, later on today, I'm going to get together with Ghost, and we're going to be talking about some plans or some strategies. We're gonna see if I can rig his podcast to work for free the way I was able to rig mine. And if that works, then we'll be sharing that with people and giving people some access to iTunes a little cheaper, and to Stitcher and all the different podcast indexes out there. A little cheaper than some of the things we've been looking at. We'll do that today. Looks like Night Strike said that we'll meet up. So what is today? Friday. So hopefully next week we'll get some contact with Jimmy over the weekend, and we'll continue to effort on Early Watch to make it as both entertaining and useful as possible. And everybody that watches.
Just I'm going to interrupt you just before you wrap it up, before I lose the thought. The podcast thing is cool, but also too, there's a lot of free programs out there that will take a YouTube video and either download it with audio and video or download it as just an MP3. Because again, for me, it's like everybody goes, I'm on Spreaker, I'm on iTunes, I'm on SoundCloud, I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. But most people still have YouTube as their sort of central hub. And I just have a freeware program that downloads them as MP3s, and I can put them on my iPad, my phone, listen to them anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. I'm using this thing called 4K Video Downloader. I got the idea from Matt, who used it to download all the videos off of his channel before he deleted them all. So you can see I downloaded a bunch of Every Second Matters. I downloaded a bunch of the Daily Gun shows already. So you basically just find your YouTube video. This one probably won't work because it's live streaming right now. But all you got to do is copy the URL, go to this software. There's a software on your computer. All you got to do is click this, and it's now took the copy that I made and it's putting it into there. It'll come up and say that it can't do it here in a minute, but first it's going to ask me what size. So first I can go to video, like you're saying. If I wanted to pull the whole video down, I could, but I do it for the podcast, so I just pull the audio portion, and then it'll download in various sizes. Now, normally, if this was a real video, it would have a finite size, and then there'd be another column here, and it would tell me at this quality, it's going to be this end result, like this size end result. At this quality, it'll be this size end result. And for us, 100 megabytes is about what people want. It's what the uploaders like. That's a threshold. So anyway, I usually find it somewhere around 128 brings out a 1 hour podcast to the right physical size. When I hit extract, it'll put it to whatever folder I want it to. This won't work because it's a live stream. It doesn't have an end, so it'll just error. But it's that simple. And then once you've got the file, like this Every Second Matters from last August was 63 megabytes. Just head over to the place where we've got them hosted and upload them as a file. They look like this when they're all done. You can listen to them right on the website.
Yeah. The one that I use is called FreeMake, and it does basically the same thing. FreeMake Video Downloader. It does the same thing. Lets you choose your size and all of that stuff. But the thing that's cool, and I actually paid the $19 to upgrade it, is because when you pay for the upgrade, then it will do a whole playlist. So literally, if I open up my subscription alerts channel and then start FreeMake, anybody that's got a new video appears in FreeMake, and then I can choose which ones I want to download, and it downloads like all of them. So like every time somebody puts up a new video, or every couple of days, you can go into that and it downloads them. And that's like all. I figure the one that you use is probably going to do the same thing.
It's similar. The one that Matt, the one that I'm using here, I'm using the free version of it. It's like $15 to buy it. The buy it one will do like what you're saying. It'll download an entire channels library. So that's why they wanted it, because they can use it for their channels to download them all. I don't have enough hard drive space to download my 3,600 videos because too many of them are live, and I just don't feel like I don't have the time. Honestly, it took me 2 days to turn them off. I don't have 3 days to go through and figure out which ones I can download. But for this one, I'm using it free, and it lets me download anything I want. And then I did discover, I didn't even know it could do this, but I dropped a playlist link in there one time, and it said, do you want to take the whole playlist? And this one let me do the playlist for free. It just wants you to pay for the whole channel. So it let me do the whole playlist, like you said. I never thought about setting up a playlist. Like that's probably what I'll do for like in the future for like Wanamaker. You know, I could have a playlist on the Gun Channel's YouTube and then just go around favoriting, liking, or including all of the various channels who went to Wanamaker or NRA or whatever it is. Make that a playlist, because the playlist doesn't have to be your own videos. It can be anybody's videos. Just, you know, whatever the topic you decide to collect them and gather them, they're in a playlist. And then, yeah, have that thing go and suck all of those audio files. And now you've got a set of podcasts from a selection of people that are all on the same topic.
Exactly. I was going to say, I mean, for the Wanamaker thing, that's a great idea. And I do the same thing, except I do it with topics like grip. Okay. So if, you know, I want to know about grip and stance. So I'll type in grip into YouTube and, you know, it gives you the list of things and I'll just make a playlist. Oh, I want to see that video, that video, that video, that video, and that video. And boom, there, I'm done. And yeah, that's the way that I use it the most, is by topic. So
that's something that's interesting. We have all these discussions and know for years, and I never knew he was that interested in running cables and wires on a video set or on a movie set.
Yes.
Sorry guys, I lost my internet.
He's a dolly grip.
Yeah, he's a key grip. Yeah, no problem, Tony. I conscripted these two to fill in for you. It took two of them to fill you.
Well, you know that conspiracy about the Munchkin in The Wizard of Oz hanging from a tree?
Yeah.
Just saying.
What are you talking about?
There's I don't know if it's true or not because I never checked, but there's one of the conspiracy things is that one of the Lilliputians or Munchkins or whatever the hell they were called in The Wizard of Oz, that one of them committed suicide and he's hanging from a tree and it's on the film. So you're talking about, you know, liking to run around a movie set stringing cables up, and sometimes you just kind of end up with casualties.
You can investigate it on YouTube and find out that it's like a bird prop set piece that's like bending over or something.
If I had actually heard that though.
Or maybe that's a different scene.
That particular little conspiracy theory, I have heard that.
Well,
I thought they showed it.
What?
I thought that what I watched on it showed it, but maybe not. I don't know. I see so much bullshit I can't keep.
Like it
looks like it. It's like the two faces and the lamp. Like, what do you see? Two faces or the lamp?
What?
It's
two faces.
True, like a black and white picture where two faces are facing each other. They're silhouettes, but in the middle it looks like a vase or a weird.
Oh, one of those optical illusion pictures.
Yeah.
Drawing.
That's what it basically is in the Wizard of Oz.
Well, I can.
It's like a bird,
like an optical illusion with the clue, like, hey, look at that, and you're going to see it as that because you just got told to look for that or whatever. But then I could also see it as if it actually happened. Then people are going to say like, oh, no, it's just an optical illusion.
Small woman with breasts, medium woman with breasts, you with breasts.
But what I know isn't a urban legend is that it syncs up with the wall, because I went to a thing at a laser show, like at an auditorium where they played the movie on a big screen and then had like a laser show and play on the wall, and it syncs up for a long time. It's really creepy how all that
anybody that grew up in New York in my generation knows about the Hayden Planetarium, and they did the Pink Floyd laser show, and it was like the huge thing. Just whoever thought of this. So they did the Pink Floyd laser show on the inside of the planetarium, and that was probably still going on. But then they did the Wizard of Oz sync to Pink Floyd, and it was just, yeah. And think about watching the Wizard of Oz on the ceiling of the Hayden Planetarium.
Yeah. That would definitely be better. This was like in a regular auditorium where they have plays and stuff. So the lasers were kind of shooting up at you from like where the people would be. So it's not the same as being in a planetarium at all. But they have, not with the Wizard of Oz, but they do have laser shows with Pink Floyd, or at least they used to at the U of A planetarium like every Friday. But yeah, I've seen that. They didn't play the Wizard of Oz. I think it's a money thing.
Well, the Hayden Planetarium is definitely not an impoverished little organization, that's for sure.
You can watch that on YouTube though. So just type in Wizard of Oz and Pink Floyd, and then it has them already synced. You don't have to do the old-fashioned hit the record. You'd have to know when to hit the record and the VCR in the old days or whatever.
There, I don't think it was on YouTube. It may be on YouTube now, but I remember finding one on Vimeo that somebody spent a lot of time. It was like in 4K high def with like Dolby surround, and they did a real high-end production of it. That was kind of awesome.
That would be the thing, having good audio, because YouTube is okay, but it's not like you're pumping that through big speakers and having a great experience. All right, well, that went all around the watchtower and then back. So we kind of explained we're helping out with the show and continue to work on that. We'll hopefully learn something new over the weekend with what's happening with Jimmy. And we'll learn if he's maybe changing the schedule or something. Thanks, guys, for jumping in today. Tony, thanks for doing this for so long. And everybody that's been watching and or might be listening in the future, I appreciate it. Tony has an email if you want to send a piece of interesting Second Amendment news that you'd like to have featured on the show. What's that email?
Early Watch IL, as in short for Illinois, at gmail.com. God, I'm about to spit out my Hotmail.
See, if I was you, I would have gone with ewillen at gmail.com, but I don't want to.
Well, Jimmy put out the format. I just followed it.
Right on. Well, I appreciate what you guys are doing, and looking forward to where we could go. It's going to be an interesting year. We've got some stuff that are on the shelf for their midterms. Hopefully we can work together. We've got people like, did we talk about the Military Arms Channel video yesterday?
Yes.
Okay. So we got people like Mac out there, that have influence and are active and have a real ambition to further Second Amendment stuff. So I think we've got another interesting year coming, and appreciate all the people that are observing and participating in it.
On a parting note to leave all you with, do you think Trump is actually playing it very smart with what he's doing as president currently concerning the midterms? And with that, I'll say good day, everybody.
Good day. Can I have a parting note?
Sure.
For everybody who has never heard of Iran-Contra, don't use Wikipedia, and please look up Iran-Contra.